The cargo hauler Horizon's Edge moved slowly through the dark space of the Kepler belt, and its old hull showed many scratches from years of traveling between distant stars. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair looking at shipping papers on his screen, while his crew worked at their stations around him. The ship carried nothing special today, just basic construction materials heading to the mining colonies on Titan 7. It was supposed to be a routine trip, the kind Jake had made hundreds of times before without any trouble. Lisa Parker worked at the navigation station, and her fingers moved quickly across the glowing buttons in front of her. She had been with Jake for 3 years now and knew her job well. The ship's sensors suddenly showed something that made her sit up straight in her chair. Her voice carried worry when she spoke to the captain. Multiple contacts were dropping out of hyperspace all around them, and the sensors showed 6 small attack craft moving into position. Lisa told Jake they had company, and it did not look friendly at all. Jake felt his stomach tighten as he asked how many ships were out there. When Lisa confirmed 6 vessels with their weapons powered up, he knew this was going to be a bad day. Pirates in the Kepler belt were rare because the United Earth Fleet patrolled this area regularly, but these raiders seemed bold enough to attack anyway. Jake hit the ship-wide communication button and ordered all crew members to their battle stations. His voice stayed calm even though his mind was racing through options. None of them were good. Down in the engine room, Chief Harry Coleman heard the captain's order and immediately started moving power around to different systems. The Horizon's Edge was not built for fighting, but every human ship had basic shields and engines strong enough to run away if needed. Harry had served in the fleet before he retired to civilian work, and his old training kicked in without him thinking about it. He checked the power levels and made sure the engines were ready to give everything they had if the captain needed speed. The pirate ships, closed in like wolves surrounding prey, and Jake could see their hulls were patched together from different alien technologies. The lead ship sent a communication request and Jake accepted it. A reptilian face appeared on the main screen, its scales reflecting the dim lights of its own bridge. The creature was a Vecron, a species known for being aggressive traders and sometimes pirates. The Vecron captain's voice came through with a hissing sound as it demanded they cut their engines and prepare to be boarded. The alien said if they surrendered their cargo, nobody would have to die today. Jake kept his face neutral, but inside he was thinking hard. The normal procedure for pirates was simple. Let them take the cargo, file an insurance claim later, and everybody goes home alive. But something felt wrong about this situation. The pirates seemed too confident and too organized for a random attack. Jake replied calmly that they were a registered Earth cargo vessel carrying only construction materials. He said it was not worth the pirates' time or effort. The Vecron captain's mouth opened in what might have been a smile showing many sharp teeth. The alien said they knew exactly what the ship carried, and they also knew the military escort would not pass through this sector for another 3 days. The pirates had done their homework and knew the Horizon's Edge was alone and vulnerable, out here in the darkness between stars. Jake's suspicions were confirmed now. These pirates had inside information about fleet patrol routes and cargo schedules. This was not some random attack by desperate criminals. Someone had told them when and where to strike. Jake quietly ordered Lisa to send a silent signal to Fleet Command letting them know about the situation. Lisa nodded and her fingers moved carefully across her console trying to avoid detection. Before Lisa could finish sending the signal, the pirate ships opened fire with warning shots. Energy blasts crossed in front of the Horizon's Edge bow, and the whole ship shook from the near misses. Alarms started ringing throughout the vessel. Lisa reported that the pirates were jamming all their communications, and she could not get any signal out to call for help. They were completely cut off from the rest of the fleet. Jake gripped the armrests of his chair and asked Harry how the engines were doing. Harry's voice came back through the speaker saying the engines were ready, but warning that if they tried to run, the pirates would catch them before they could jump to hyperspace. The ship was too slow and the pirates were too close. They were trapped with no easy way out of this situation. The Vecron captain appeared on screen again, looking less patient than before. The alien said it was done being nice and ordered them to shut down their engines immediately. If they did not comply, the next round of weapons fire would punch holes through their hull and kill everyone inside. The threat was clear and very real. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew of 12 people. They were not soldiers, just regular civilians trying to make a living by hauling cargo across the galaxy. He could not risk their lives over construction materials that could be replaced. But something about this whole situation screamed danger in his mind. He asked the Vecron captain what they really wanted. The alien's eyes seemed to gleam with satisfaction at the question. The Vecron explained they wanted the ship's computer core with all its navigation data, fleet security codes, and communication protocols. They wanted everything that would let them hit more human vessels in the future. Now Jake understood completely. This was not about stealing cargo at all. The pirates wanted intelligence they could sell or use to attack dozens of other ships. If Jake gave them access to his ship's systems, he would be putting countless other crews in danger. Jake's voice was firm when he told the Vecron captain that was not going to happen. The alien's scales seemed to darken with anger as it replied that Jake had just chosen death for himself and his crew. The pirate vessels opened fire for real this time. Energy weapons hammered into the Horizon's Edge shields and the ship bucked violently under the assault. More alarms wailed across the bridge as systems started failing one by one. Lisa shouted over the noise that their shields were down to 60% and dropping fast. The ship could not take much more punishment like this before the hull started breaking apart. Jake made his decision in that moment, knowing it might save them or doom them, but doing nothing was certain death. He ordered Harry to give him everything the engines had, and told Lisa to plot a course straight through the pirate formation. They were going to ram their way out if that was what it took to survive. Lisa protested, saying that was suicide, but Jake shot back that giving the pirates what they wanted was also suicide, just slower and for more people. He told his crew to trust him, even though he was not completely sure of the plan himself. What the pirates did not know was that the Horizon's Edge carried one piece of military equipment, not listed on any official manifest. Hidden in Cargo Bay 3, disguised to look like a standard shipping container, was an emergency beacon powerful enough to punch through any jamming signal, but it needed a massive amount of power to work, and there was only one way to generate that much energy on a cargo hauler. Jake ordered Harry to overload the hyperspace capacitors and pour every bit of power into the beacon. Harry's voice came back after a pause, telling Jake that doing this would completely destroy their hyperspace drive. They would be stranded in space, unable to jump away even if they survived the fight. Jake replied it was better to be stranded than dead. He told Harry to do it and do it now. The Horizon's Edge suddenly surged forward with its engines screaming at maximum power. The pirate ships scattered in surprise because they had not expected the cargo hauler to attack them, instead of running away or surrendering. Deep in the engineering section, Harry threw the switches that would save their lives but destroy their ability to escape. Energy flowed through the ship's systems, overloading circuits and burning out components all over the vessel. Sparks flew from control panels and smoke filled some corridors. In Cargo Bay 3, the emergency beacon came to life with enough power to cut through the pirate jamming like it was paper. The signal burst out into space, carrying their location, their situation, and everything about the pirate attack. Somewhere far away in the darkness, someone would hear their call for help. But right now, in this moment, the Horizon's Edge was still very much alone with its shields failing, and 6 angry pirate ships moving in for the kill. 200,000 kilometers away from the dying Horizon's Edge, the destroyer USS Vengeance cut through space like a knife on its regular patrol route. Commander Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge reviewing tactical displays with her executive officer, Lieutenant Sam Peters. The Vengeance was one of the newer fleet ships, built specifically for hunting pirates in the outer colonies with speed and firepower that made it deadly in combat. Kate had commanded the ship for 2 years and her crew knew their jobs perfectly. Ensign Chris Howard sat at the communications station and his eyes suddenly went wide as his screen lit up with an incoming signal. He called out to Commander Sullivan that they were picking up an emergency beacon from the Kepler belt in Sector 7. Kate's head snapped toward him immediately and she asked for details on the transmission. Chris quickly analyzed the signal and reported it was a cargo hauler called Horizon's Edge, under attack by multiple hostile vessels. The ship was broadcasting fleet emergency codes, which meant this was a genuine military-grade distress call, and not some false alarm. Kate did not hesitate for even a second. She ordered the navigation officer to plot an intercept course at maximum burn, and told Tactical to bring all weapon systems online. She also instructed Chris to alert Fleet Command and any other ships in the area about the situation. The bridge erupted into controlled activity as every crew member moved to their battle stations. The Vengeance's powerful engines flared bright blue as the destroyer surged forward, closing the distance between them and the distress call as fast as the ship could move. The navigator reported their estimated time of arrival was 12 minutes at current speed. Kate studied the sensor data streaming in from the emergency beacon and saw that the cargo hauler was taking heavy damage. 12 minutes might be too long for the civilian ship to survive against multiple attackers. She turned to her tactical officer and asked if they had firing solutions on those coordinates even at this extreme range. Lieutenant Sam Peters checked his console and confirmed they could launch missiles, but the weapons would take 8 minutes to reach the target area. Kate made her decision quickly. She ordered Tactical to launch everything they had at the pirate vessels. The missiles would not arrive in time to save the cargo hauler if the pirates kept attacking, but they might convince the raiders to break off and run instead of staying to fight. The Vengeance shuddered as its torpedo tubes opened and missiles streaked away into the darkness toward the distant battle. Sam reported all missiles away and tracking properly toward their targets. Kate told Chris to open a channel on all frequencies because she wanted those pirates to know a fleet warship was coming for them. Chris confirmed the channel was open, and Kate's voice carried all the authority of 10 years in military service. She identified herself and her ship, then ordered the hostile vessels to break off their attack immediately and surrender. She informed them that fleet missiles were already inbound on their position, and the Vengeance would be in weapons range in 10 minutes. Any further hostile action would be met with lethal force and no mercy. Back on the horizon's edge, Jake Morrison heard the transmission through the static and chaos of his damaged bridge. He asked Lisa to confirm the signal was genuine and not some trick by the pirates. Lisa worked her console and reported it was a real fleet destroyer coming in fast. Jake felt hope surge through him for the first time since this nightmare began. He looked at the Vecron captain's face on his screen and saw the alien's confident expression crack with uncertainty. The pirate captain snarled at Jake, saying that the fleet had just guaranteed everyone's death. Jake replied calmly that actually it guaranteed the pirates' deaths instead. He told the Vecron that the choice now was simple: run away and maybe escape, or stay and face a destroyer that would tear them apart. Jake could see the pirate captain was torn between greed for the intelligence data and the survival instinct, telling him to flee. The pirate ships continued their assault, but Jake noticed their coordination was breaking down. The raiders were arguing among themselves over their communication channels, and their formation was getting sloppy. Then space suddenly lit up with multiple explosions as the fleet missiles arrived slightly earlier than expected. 2 pirate ships exploded instantly when the missiles overwhelmed their shields and tore their hulls apart. The remaining 4 pirate vessels scattered in panic as their attack fell apart completely. Lisa reported that all 4 surviving pirate ships were breaking off and heading toward hyperspace jump points to escape. The horizon's edge was finally safe from immediate destruction, but the ship was in terrible condition. Shields were down to 15%. Hull breaches on 3 different decks, and life support was failing in 2 entire sections. The ship was listing to one side because attitude control was damaged. Jake called for damage reports from all stations, and the news was not good. His crew reported in one by one, and the picture became clear. They had survived the attack, but the ship was critically damaged and going nowhere without major repairs. The hyperspace drive was completely destroyed, just as Harry had warned when they overloaded it to power the emergency beacon. They were stranded in space waiting for rescue, but at least they were alive. That was more than the pirates could say. 8 minutes after the transmission, the Vengeance swept into visual range, and Jake got his first look at their rescuer. The destroyer was beautiful in a deadly way, sleek and powerful compared to his battered cargo hauler. Commander Kate Sullivan studied the horizon's edge on her view screen and visibly winced at the extensive damage the civilian ship had taken. She ordered Chris to open a channel to the cargo hauler. Jake's tired face appeared on the Vengeance's main screen. He looked exhausted but unbroken by the ordeal. Kate asked him about the status of his crew, and Jake reported that all 12 people were alive with some injuries, but nothing critical. He admitted the ship itself was another story entirely because they were dead in space and could not move under their own power. Kate nodded and told him they would get repair teams over to his ship immediately. She asked if he could maintain life support for his crew. Jake confirmed they could keep life support running for now, but it was not stable. Then he told Kate there was something important she needed to know about the attack. He quickly explained that the pirates had not wanted cargo at all. They had specifically tried to steal fleet security data and navigation codes from his ship's computer. He also revealed that the pirates knew detailed information about patrol schedules and cargo manifests. This had not been a random attack by opportunistic criminals. Kate's expression turned hard as she absorbed this information. She asked Jake to confirm the pirates were specifically after military intelligence rather than just valuables. Jake confirmed that was correct, and added that the pirates seemed to know everything about fleet operations in this sector. That level of detailed intelligence suggested either a major security breach somewhere, or someone on the inside feeding information to the enemy. Kate promised Jake they would get to the bottom of this situation. She turned to Sam and ordered him to organize damage control teams to stabilize the Horizon's Edge and prepare it for towing back to the nearest station. She wanted the civilian ship secured within 1 hour. Sam immediately started coordinating the rescue operation while Kate studied tactical data from the brief battle. 4 pirate ships had escaped, but 2 were completely destroyed. Their debris field would contain valuable intelligence if properly analyzed. Kate ordered Chris to get a science team scanning and collecting samples from the wreckage. She wanted to know everything about those ships, including where they came from, what technologies they used, and any identifying information that could lead back to their base of operations. Kate stared at the image of the damaged Horizon's Edge floating helplessly in space with the debris field of destroyed pirate ships scattered around it. This attack had been too organized and too well planned to be simple piracy. Real pirates were usually just opportunistic scavengers looking for easy targets. These raiders had detailed fleet intelligence and specific objectives. They knew exactly when and where to strike for maximum effect. Something much bigger was happening here, and Kate had a strong feeling this was just the beginning of a larger problem. The pirates had made a serious mistake when they attacked the Horizon's Edge. They had given the fleet a reason to look closer and investigate deeper. Now Kate Sullivan was on their trail, and she would not stop until she found every single person involved in this operation. The pirates thought they could hide behind false identities and attack human ships with impunity. They were about to learn that humanity protects its own and hunts down anyone who threatens civilian vessels. Kate ordered the Vengeance to begin a detailed sensor sweep of the entire area, looking for any clues the pirates might have left behind. She also requested all available data on recent pirate attacks in nearby sectors. If there was a pattern, she would find it. If there was a conspiracy, she would expose it. The game had changed, and the hunters were about to become the hunted. Fleet Command took the attack on the Horizon's Edge very seriously, and within 48 hours, Commander, Kate Sullivan found herself in a secure briefing room on the orbital station above Earth. Admiral Frank Henderson sat at the head of the table, and his weathered face showed deep concern. The room was filled with intelligence officers who all wanted to hear what Kate had discovered about the pirate attack. The atmosphere was tense because everyone understood this was more than just another pirate raid. Admiral Henderson ordered Kate to walk them through the engagement again from the beginning. Kate stood at attention and recited every detail of the events, making sure to emphasize how the pirates had specifically wanted fleet security data and showed detailed knowledge of patrol routes. Around the table, intelligence officers took notes and exchanged worried glances with each other. This kind of organized operation with inside information pointed to something much more dangerous than simple piracy. One of the intelligence officers spoke up after Kate finished her report. She was a sharp woman named Linda Martinez who specialized in analyzing alien technologies. Linda explained that her team had analyzed the debris from the 2 destroyed pirate vessels and found something disturbing. The ships were using a mix of Vecron and Thraxian components, which was expected for pirate vessels. But they also found human military-grade communications equipment that should only be available to fleet warships. Admiral Henderson leaned forward in his chair and asked Linda to explain what she meant by human components. Linda pulled up holographic displays showing the recovered technology in detail. She pointed out communications arrays and encryption hardware that were definitely manufactured for fleet use only. Someone was supplying pirates with equipment from human military sources. The serial numbers had been scrubbed off the hardware, but Linda's team was working on tracing the manufacturing batch numbers. It would take time, but they might be able to find out where the equipment came from. The room fell completely silent as everyone absorbed the implications of this discovery. This was not just piracy anymore. This was espionage and possibly treason, by someone with access to military equipment. Kate asked if they had any leads on who might be supplying the pirates with fleet technology. Linda shook her head and explained the investigation was ongoing, but they had no solid suspects yet. Whoever was behind this knew how to cover their tracks very well. Admiral Henderson stood up and began pacing around the room as he thought through the situation. He stopped and turned to Kate with a serious expression. He told her that he was assigning her to lead the full investigation into the pirate operations. Her ship would be outfitted with additional intelligence-gathering equipment, and she would have complete access to fleet resources. He wanted the pirates found, and he wanted to know who was backing them with money and equipment. Kate accepted the assignment immediately and asked about Captain Jake Morrison and his crew from the Horizon's Edge. The admiral explained that the ship was being repaired at a fleet facility, and Morrison with his crew had been debriefed extensively. He said they should remain available for follow-up questions if needed. The admiral also commented that Morrison and his people had done well by holding out until help arrived. Morrison's decision to destroy his own hyperspace drive to power the emergency beacon showed good tactical thinking under extreme pressure. 3 days later, the Vengeance departed from Earth orbit with new orders and new scanning equipment installed. Kate stood on her bridge studying star charts and intelligence reports spread across multiple screens. The 4 pirate ships that escaped the first engagement were somewhere out there, and she intended to track them down. She asked Sam about their first move in the investigation. Lieutenant Sam Peters pulled up holographic star maps showing known smuggling routes and pirate havens in the outer systems. He suggested they start by tracking the pirates' supply lines, because even raiders needed fuel, ammunition, and spare parts to operate. If they could find where the pirates were getting supplies, they might be able to locate the main base of operations. Kate agreed with his assessment and ordered the ship to begin checking known smuggler routes for any unusual activity. Over the next 2 weeks, the Vengeance moved through the outer systems, gathering intelligence piece by piece. Kate interviewed station masters on remote outposts and bribed information brokers who dealt in secrets. She seized several smuggling vessels that were carrying suspicious cargo. Slowly, a picture began to form of a much larger operation than anyone had initially suspected. The pirate network had multiple raiding groups that coordinated their attacks and maintained a sophisticated supply chain across several star systems. The most disturbing discovery came when Linda Martinez cracked the encryption on a data storage unit they had recovered from one of the seized smuggler ships. Linda called Kate to the intelligence center on the Vengeance with urgency in her voice. Kate arrived quickly and studied the decrypted files on the screen in front of them. What she saw made her blood run cold. The files contained detailed fleet patrol schedules, cargo manifests, and security protocols covering the next 6 months of operations. Kate asked if Linda knew who had provided this information to the pirates. Linda shook her head and explained the data had been anonymized and passed through multiple intermediaries to hide the source. But there was definitely a pattern in the leaked information. Most of it related specifically to civilian cargo vessels operating in the outer colonies, rather than military targets. Someone with high-level security clearance was deliberately feeding intelligence to the pirates. Kate thought back to what Captain Morrison had told her about the pirates knowing exactly when his ship would be vulnerable. The raiders had known when fleet patrols would be in other sectors, and when civilian vessels would be alone. This was not opportunistic piracy at all. This was systematic predation, enabled by insider information from someone in a position of trust. Sam joined them in the intelligence center and pointed out that if the pirates were targeting civilian vessels specifically, they were trying to disrupt commerce without directly engaging fleet warships. It was a smart strategy that would hurt Earth's economy and credibility without triggering a full-scale military response. Kate realized this suggested the operation was not just about making money. This was strategic warfare designed to destabilize human expansion into contested sectors of space. Kate pulled up a sector map and began plotting the locations of all recent pirate attacks reported over the past 6 months. When she marked each attack site, a clear pattern emerged on the display. All the attacks were concentrated around the approaches to a cluster of mineral-rich asteroids that humanity had recently claimed. The area was called the Orion Belt, and it represented a major economic prize for the colonies. Kate said slowly that she thought she understood what was happening. Someone did not want humans mining those asteroids. Linda pointed out that the Thraxian Confederation had claimed the Orion Belt before Earth did. There had been a diplomatic dispute about ownership 6 months ago that humanity won through negotiations. The Thraxians had formally accepted the ruling, but apparently they were not willing to let it go peacefully. Sam suggested that if the Thraxians were backing pirates to harass human shipping, they were essentially conducting a shadow war. They got to attack human interests without officially breaking the peace treaty between their governments. Kate agreed this was bigger than simple piracy now. This was covert military action by another galactic power and human. Ships with their crews were being used as targets in a war nobody had officially declared. Kate knew she needed more evidence before making formal accusations against the Thraxian Confederation. Accusing another major power of conducting secret military operations was serious business that could trigger open warfare. But all the pieces were fitting together into a clear picture. The technology, the targeting pattern, the strategic objectives, everything pointed to Thraxian involvement in the pirate attacks. She ordered Sam to set a course for the Orion Belt area. If her theory was correct, there would be more pirate activity in that region. They needed to catch the raiders in action and find concrete proof of who was really giving the orders. Kate also wanted to locate the main pirate base because taking it out would cripple the entire operation. As the Vengeance changed course toward the disputed territories, Kate felt the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders. She had joined the fleet to protect human colonies and ensure safe passage for civilian vessels traveling between the stars. Now she was potentially uncovering an interstellar conspiracy that could lead to war between Earth and the Thraxian Confederation. The consequences of her investigation could affect billions of people across dozens of star systems. But whatever those consequences might be, Kate knew she would see this through to the end. The pirates had made a terrible mistake when they attacked the horizon's edge. They had given the fleet a reason to investigate deeply and follow the trail wherever it led. Now Kate Sullivan was coming for them with the full resources of Earth's military behind her. She would not stop until every pirate was caught, and everyone involved in the conspiracy faced justice for their crimes against humanity. The Vengeance moved through the Orion Belt like a predator hunting in darkness, and Commander Kate Sullivan had deployed sensor buoys throughout the entire region to create an invisible detection net. Her crew maintained constant vigilance because everyone knew the pirates were somewhere in this asteroid field, watching and waiting for their next target. The bridge was quiet except for the soft beeping of sensors and the low hum of the ship's systems. Ensign Chris Howard suddenly broke the silence with an urgent report. He announced multiple civilian vessels were under attack at bearing 273 Mark 6 at a distance of 40,000 kilometers. Kate immediately ordered all hands to battle stations and told Tactical to prepare all weapons for combat. She instructed navigation to plot an intercept course at maximum speed. The Vengeance surged forward with its engines blazing as it weaved between massive asteroids racing toward the distress signals. On the main view screen, Kate could see 3 civilian cargo vessels being harassed by 7 pirate ships. The raiders were using the same tactics they had employed against the horizon's edge, trying to disable the freighters so they could board them and steal data. Kate asked the navigator how long until they reached the battle site. The answer came back as 4 minutes, which might be too long for the civilian ships to survive. Kate ordered Chris to broadcast on all frequencies because she wanted the pirates to know a fleet destroyer was coming for them. But something felt wrong about this situation. Instead of scattering and running away like pirates normally did when faced with military opposition, these vessels maintained their positions. Their formation actually shifted to become more organized and military in appearance, rather than the chaotic attack pattern of typical raiders. Sam observed with concern that the pirates were not running away as expected. Instead, they seemed to be forming up for direct combat against the Vengeance. Kate studied the tactical display carefully, and her instincts screamed warnings at her. 7 pirate ships against 1 destroyer were terrible odds for the raiders unless they knew something she did not. She ordered the sensor operator to run a full spectrum scan of the entire area because she wanted to know if anything else was hiding out there. The sensor operator worked frantically at her console, and her face went pale as new contacts began appearing on the display. She reported additional ships were decloaking all around them. The count kept rising as more vessels appeared, 12 contacts, then 15, then even more. The pirates had been hiding in the asteroid field using advanced stealth technology, and now they were revealing themselves. Kate realized with cold clarity that they had walked straight into a carefully prepared ambush. Kate's expression hardened as she assessed the situation. 22 hostile vessels against one destroyer made this a fight the Vengeance might not survive. But running was not an option, because that would leave the civilian cargo ships to be slaughtered by the pirates. She asked Tactical how many missiles they had available for this engagement. The answer came back as 64 ship-to-ship missiles plus all the point defense systems. Kate ordered Tactical to start launching missiles immediately using targeting pattern Alpha 7. She wanted the missiles spread across the entire enemy formation to cause maximum disruption. The Vengeance shuddered as missile tubes opened along its hull, and ordnance began streaming toward the pirate fleet. At the same moment, the pirate vessels opened fire with energy weapons and launched their own missile salvos back at the destroyer. Kate ordered evasive maneuvers and told the pilot to use the asteroids for cover. The destroyer dove and twisted through the asteroid field as the pilot expertly used the massive space rocks as shields against incoming fire. Pirate missiles exploded against asteroids or were destroyed by point defense lasers, but some missiles got through the defenses and hammered into the Vengeances. Shields with tremendous force, Sam reported shields. Were down to 80% and holding, but they could not take this kind of sustained punishment for very long. Kate watched the tactical display as her missiles found their targets across the pirate formation. 3 pirate ships exploded as multiple missiles struck them simultaneously and tore their hulls apart. But that still left 19 enemy vessels, and the Vengeance's missile magazines were depleting rapidly. Kate called out to Linda Martinez, who was working in the intelligence center. She asked Linda about typical weaknesses in Thraxian military technology, since the pirates were using equipment from that species. Linda quickly pulled up relevant data and reported that Thraxian shields were weak against sustained energy weapon fire. The Thraxians relied on mobility and speed rather than heavy defensive systems. If the Vengeance could pin them down and hit them with railgun fire, the results would be devastating. Kate made a decision that went against every defensive doctrine in fleet training. She ordered Sam to redirect all available power to forward shields and the primary railgun. She told the helmsman to bring the ship around and head directly at the enemy formation at full speed. Sam looked at her like she had lost her mind and pointed out that charging 19 enemy ships was suicide. They were outnumbered almost 10-1. Kate replied with a fierce smile that the pirates would never expect such an aggressive move. The Vengeance's engines flared bright as the destroyer accelerated directly toward the massed pirate fleet. It was pure aggression that violated every rule about how to fight when outnumbered, but Kate was counting on the psychological impact to break the enemy's coordination and create an opening. Sam reported the primary railgun was charging, and they would be in effective range in 30 seconds. The pirate formation began to waver as individual captains realized the fleet ship was not retreating or calling for help. Instead, it was charging straight at them like an ancient warrior with a sword. For a critical moment, their coordination broke down as different ships made different decisions about how to respond. Kate shouted the order to fire, and the Vengeance's massive primary railgun discharged. With a flash of brilliant blue-white light, the hypervelocity projectile moved at a significant fraction of light speed and punched completely through 2 pirate ships before its energy finally dissipated. Both vessels exploded in spectacular fireballs that lit up the asteroid field. Kate ordered continuous firing with all weapons and told her crew not to give the enemy time to regroup or reorganize. The destroyer plunged into the center of the enemy formation like an avenging angel of death. Her railguns fired in careful sequence with each shot, calculated for maximum damage against the weak Thraxian shields. Energy weapons lashed out at any pirate ship that ventured too close to the destroyer. The Vengeance's shields were taking tremendous damage, but the ship was dealing out far more destruction than it received. Chris suddenly reported they were receiving a transmission from one of the civilian cargo vessels. The freighter captain was requesting permission to join the fight because his ship was armed with defensive weapons. Kate had only seconds to make the decision. Civilian vessels were not designed for military combat, but the cargo haulers operating in the Orion Belt had started carrying heavier weapons after the recent wave of pirate attacks. Kate granted permission and told the civilian ships to stay on the outer edges of the battle, providing covering fire only. She ordered them not to engage in close combat with the pirates. The 3 cargo haulers opened fire with their weapons, and while individually weak, their combined firepower was enough to threaten several pirate ships. The raiders were forced to break off their attacks on the Vengeance to deal with this unexpected resistance from what they thought were helpless prey. The entire momentum of the battle shifted dramatically. Kate's aggressive charge had thrown the pirates into confusion and panic. The unexpected resistance from civilian vessels had complicated their tactical situation even further. More pirate ships fell to the Vengeance's devastating railgun fire. Others began breaking formation and trying to flee the battle entirely. Sam reported that 2 enemy vessels were attempting to retreat and jump to hyperspace. Kate ordered her crew to let them go and focus all fire on the ships that were still fighting. It was a calculated decision on her part. Those fleeing ships would carry word of what happened here and spread fear among other pirate groups operating in the region. Sometimes having terrified survivors was more valuable than dead enemies. 10 minutes later, the battle was over, and the result was clear. 14 pirate ships had been completely destroyed, and 8 had fled into hyperspace. Not a single civilian vessel had been lost, despite being heavily outnumbered at the start. The Vengeance hung in space with its hull scorched and blackened from energy weapon hits. The shields were depleted to almost nothing, but the ship was intact and victorious. Kate ordered a full damage report from all stations and allowed herself to breathe normally, for the first time since the battle began. Sam reported shields were down to 12%, and there were multiple hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. The primary railgun had overheated from continuous firing, and would be offline for several hours while it cooled down and was repaired. But overall, the ship was still functional and combat-capable if another threat appeared. Sam grinned at Kate and told her that was the craziest tactical decision he had ever witnessed, but it had worked. Fleet Command responded to Commander Kate Sullivan's report with swift and decisive action that showed they took the Thraxian threat very seriously. Within 72 hours, a full battle group assembled at the edge of the Orion Belt with enough firepower to level entire planets. Admiral Frank Henderson himself took command from the massive carrier USS Enterprise, and the Vengeance was integrated into the strike force as one of dozens of warships. Kate stood on her repaired bridge watching as destroyers, frigates, cruisers, and the enormous bulk of the Enterprise took up formation around them. It was an overwhelming display of human military power that would make any enemy think twice about fighting. Sam reported from his station that all ships in the battle group were ready and waiting for orders to begin the operation. Admiral Henderson's weathered face appeared on every view screen throughout the entire fleet, and his voice carried the weight of command. He told all ships that for weeks their civilian vessels had been attacked by forces they believed were pirates. But they now had conclusive evidence that these attacks were actually conducted by Thraxian military forces operating under false colors to hide their identity. Kate watched as intelligence data flooded across tactical displays throughout the fleet, showing all the evidence her team had gathered over weeks of investigation. The displays showed Thraxian military communication codes, encrypted transmissions, and identity markers hidden deep in the pirate equipment. Everything pointed to organized military action rather than random criminal activity. Admiral Henderson continued his briefing and explained that the Thraxian Confederation had been conducting an undeclared war against human expansion in this sector of space. They had attacked civilian vessels, stolen military intelligence, and attempted to murder innocent crews. The Admiral's voice became harder as he declared that this situation ended today and ended permanently. However, he made it clear they were not here to start a war but to end one, that the Thraxians had already begun without formal declaration, the Admiral explained. Their mission objectives clearly to every ship in the fleet. They were to locate and destroy every pirate base operating in this region. They would eliminate all Thraxian forces conducting these covert operations. Most importantly, they would send a message that could not be misunderstood. Attacks on human vessels would not be tolerated under any circumstances. The galaxy needed to understand that humanity protected its people and would respond with overwhelming force when threatened. Admiral Henderson turned his attention specifically to Commander Sullivan and ordered her ship to take point position for the fleet. He noted that she had been hunting these pirates for weeks and knew their patterns better than anyone. Kate acknowledged the order with pride and told her helmsman to set course for coordinates she had identified during her investigation. She ordered all ships to follow the Vengeance's lead as they moved deeper into pirate-controlled territory. The massive battle group moved as one coordinated unit, creating an intimidating wall of human warships sweeping through the Orion Belt. Kate used every piece of intelligence she had gathered to guide them toward known pirate supply routes and suspected base locations. The pirates had been careful to hide their operations, but Kate had spent weeks learning their patterns, and now she knew where to look. The fleet did not have to search for very long before finding their first target. Nestled inside a hollowed-out asteroid was a well-fortified pirate base, with docking bays full of disguised Thraxian raiders. Defensive gun batteries covered every approach vector, and powerful shields protected the entire installation from attack. It looked impregnable, but the pirates had never faced the concentrated firepower of an entire fleet battle. Group. Kate broadcast orders to all ships telling them to target the defensive emplacements first and then move on to destroying the docking facilities. She made it clear they were not here to take prisoners or negotiate surrender terms. The order was simple: weapons-free and complete destruction. The fleet opened fire with perfectly coordinated precision that came from years of training together. Missiles streaked toward the asteroid base in waves that overwhelmed its defensive systems completely. Railgun fire punched through shields and armor like they were made of paper, tearing apart the fortifications that had taken years to build. In less than 10 minutes, the pirate base was nothing but a burning wreck drifting in space. Every ship that had been docked there was destroyed before they could even power up their engines to escape. The fleet did not celebrate or pause to admire their handiwork. They simply moved on to the next target with mechanical efficiency that was somehow more frightening than any display of emotion ever. The following week, the human battle group systematically hunted down every pirate base, supply depot, and hidden outpost operating in the entire sector. The Thraxians fought back with desperate ferocity because they finally understood the magnitude of their mistake. Their disguised raiders and secret bases had been designed to avoid open military confrontation. But now they faced the full might of an aroused human fleet that had come looking for blood. Every battle ended the same way, with Thraxian vessels burning and bases reduced to debris fields. Kate watched from the Vengeance's bridge as another pirate stronghold exploded under sustained bombardment. Sam stood beside her reviewing casualty reports, and the numbers told a stark story. 0 fleet losses in all the engagements so far, with only a few ships suffering minor damage. The enemy had lost dozens upon dozens of vessels and hundreds of personnel. They simply were not prepared or equipped to fight a real military force in open battle. Sam observed that the pirates had spent years preying on weak civilian targets and forgot how to fight against someone who could hit back effectively. Kate agreed with his assessment and noted that pirates succeeded by attacking the vulnerable and running from the strong. When faced with overwhelming force, they had no effective tactics or strategies. They were predators who suddenly found themselves facing a bigger predator and discovered they were completely outmatched. And the 6th day of continuous operations, the fleet finally located the main Thraxian command base. It was absolutely massive and hidden deep in a dense cluster of asteroids that made sensor scanning difficult. The base was protected by a full naval squadron of genuine Thraxian warships, rather than disguised raiders. This was not a pirate hideout anymore. This was a proper military installation with thousands of personnel and dozens of combat vessels. Admiral Henderson called a command conference, and Kate found herself on the Enterprise's flag bridge along with other ship commanders from the battle group. The Admiral studied tactical displays showing the enemy base in detail. He explained that intelligence estimated over 40 combat vessels and several thousand Thraxian military personnel at this location. This was their command center for the entire covert operation against human shipping. If the fleet destroyed this base, they would effectively cut the head off the snake and end the threat permanently. One of the older cruiser captains, named Gary Foster, spoke up with concern in his voice. He pointed out that attacking a full Thraxian military installation could trigger open war between their civilizations. He asked if Fleet Command was prepared to accept that potential consequence. Admiral Henderson's response was firm and uncompromising. He stated that the Thraxians had already started a war by attacking human vessels and murdering civilian crews. The only difference was the Thraxians lacked the courage to be honest about their aggression. The fleet was simply going to finish what the Thraxians began. Kate studied the tactical displays carefully and analyzed approach vectors and defensive positions around the enemy base. She recommended using the same aggressive forward assault tactic that had worked so effectively in her previous engagement. A concentrated strike by fast destroyers to break their formation, followed by coordinated attacks from the rest of the fleet, would overwhelm their defenses. Admiral Henderson agreed with her tactical assessment and assigned her ship to lead the initial attack wing. 3 hours later, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace directly in front of the Thraxian military base. The enemy responded with surprising speed by launching fighter craft and bringing their warships into defensive formations. They had clearly received warning about the fleet's approach and prepared themselves for battle. Kate ordered maximum power to forward shields and told her crew they were going straight into the teeth of enemy defenses. The Vengeance led a squadron of destroyers in a direct charge at the Thraxian formation, exactly as Kate had done before. But this time the enemy was ready and waiting. They had analyzed reports from previous battles and adjusted their tactics accordingly. Multiple Thraxian vessels moved to surround and envelop the attacking human destroyers. Sam warned that the enemy was trying to isolate them from the main fleet and destroy them separately. Kate broadcast orders to her entire squadron telling all ships to maintain tight formation and continue the forward assault without hesitation. She emphasized that breaking formation would lead to defeat, but staying together would lead to victory. The space around the asteroid base erupted into chaos as human and Thraxian vessels exchanged devastating broadsides at point-blank range. Missiles filled the darkness between ships and energy weapons carved glowing